It's great to have you here on the Clark Howard Show, where our mission is to serve you with knowledge that empowers you so you make better financial decisions in your life. And before I begin today's show, I hope that you're one of many people who are now subscribing to one of our free newsletters. They're filled with money-saving advice you can trust. That's just a slogan, right? The real deal with us is we don't have any what's known by the euphemism sponsored content. Unfortunately, like a plague of locusts, sponsored content has invaded all kinds of news sources, websites, newsletters, you name it, where you're reading something that you think is news content, but is actually an ad. That will never happen with us. You can trust that what you see is what we believe in our heads and our hearts. So all you got to do, go to clark.com/newsletter to subscribe. And remember, it's free. And if you end up subscribing, you're like, I don't like this. This isn't useful for me, whatever. We make it just as easy to unsubscribe as to subscribe. No games, no gimmicks with signing up. So, depending on where you live in the country, it's getting cold out there. And that makes me think of one thing. What's it going to cost us to heat our homes this winter? And I've got some good news that, barring some unexpected event in the world, is really good for your and my wallet. And later, there's a game some of the big auto insurers are playing now following an accident. I need to make sure you know what's going on to protect your wallet in the aftermath of an accident. So last year, I remember I did so many, in my TV work, I did so many stories about doing everything you could to mitigate the enormous increase in the cost of natural gas. You know, we were still dealing with the after effects of Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and the cost of winter heating last year, so much of it that is with people who have direct natural gas lines into their homes or heat with electricity. So much of electricity in the United States now is supplied by natural gas. Price goes up and down, up and down, up and down. I'm looking at a live pricing right now, and it moves up and down all within a session. Like I'm looking right now, in just the last little while, the cost of natural gas at wholesale down 3% plus. And then later it might be up 3%. But the trend is our friend, because natural gas is roughly a third the cost this year than it was a year ago. And when you have natural gas supplied to your home, if you're in a regulated state or an unregulated one, ultimately the cost of the natural gas is reflected in as a big portion of what you pay to your natural gas provider or service. And if you do have a heat pump and you heat with electricity in the winter, thank goodness you don't need heat in the summer. Anyway, so you heat with electricity. With most regulated electricity providers, in most states they're regulated, there's a pass-through of energy costs. And this winter, particularly in states that rely on natural gas for a big portion of how they provide that electricity, you're going to see much lower pass-through costs for the purchase of the natural gas by the various electricity providers. And so this is really good news. It doesn't mean with the cost of natural gas being approximately a third of what it was a year ago, that your bill is going to be a third, because you're paying for so much stuff. You're paying for the pipelines that exist, the delivery of that through the pipeline. you're paying for maintenance, you're paying for the profits of the providers. So there is a big direct savings to you is not going to be 2/3 savings, but it will be nice and substantial. And isn't it nice to have some good news on the price front? And this is clearly good news. Remember, I was talking about how quickly the price moves. So the price was down 3% when I started talking about this. It dropped to 1%. Now it's back to 3%, all in just the last 2 minutes. So it is a volatile fuel. The price moves a lot in the marketplace, but clearly the price is substantially lower than it was. And again, barring who knows what in the world, we're going to have a much better bill to open each month this winter. And this week, if you did not see yesterday's podcast, Krista is out with family this week. So Nicole is filling in. And Nicole,
Hello.
It's great to have you here today.
Good to be here. So we're going to a different source of energy from David in South Carolina. I was turned on to your show back in 2021. And now I listen every week. Your podcast and Clark.com helped our family tremendously when we were navigating buying our first home. After hearing you mention solar energy on the podcast, I did some research to see if solar panels would be a good option for us. Unfortunately, due to the size and direction of our roof, solar panels don't make sense in our situation. This made me curious about wind energy. Living near the mountains, I imagine that wind energy would make more sense for our home than solar. I looked on Clark.com for a guide to wind turbines and was surprised that I couldn't find one. Searching your website, I find much less on wind energy than I do on solar panels. Why is that? From my limited knowledge, it seems like a lot of Clarkies could benefit from you sharing some resources related to this topic. Are there any websites or services you could point people to who are curious about wind energy?
Well, this is a great question. And David, the deal is that wind energy is not normally considered to be a distributed source of power. Solar is a distributed source, meaning that if you put solar panels on your roof, or if you have a yard, putting them in the yard, because the last home that I put solar in, we did a solar farm where it was put on stilts on a hillside on our property rather than putting it on the roof, which was a cheaper way to install it and was much more efficient because we could aim it exactly. Solar lends itself very well to being a local power source. Wind does not. Now, that may change in the future. Also, in a lot of places in the country, you're never going to be able to get permitted to put a wind turbine on your property because of the adjacent neighbors if you're in any kind of traditional neighborhood. If you're on a big rural piece of land, yeah, I guess you could. But the way the wind turbine industry works, if you go buy a wind farm, you'll see a very large number of arrays of wind turbines that all are working together and sending power to the grid. And so at least with today's technology, I'm not aware of people being able to use wind as a distributed form of energy, meaning local for your own house.
From Deb in Utah. In the article titled, "The Number One Bill You Should Always Get by Mail," Clark says he has a Wells Fargo bank account. I am shocked as he trashes the big banks all the time, and I think Wells Fargo is the worst of the worst. Why would Clark have an account with them?
So first of all, I don't. I refer to Wells Fargo as a criminal enterprise impersonating a bank, and I've said that for years. But we are we run a democracy at Clark.com and at my companies. And Craig, one of our writers, has his account at Wells Fargo. And that was a first-person article by Craig. There are dozens of writers that work for us on Clark.com and ClarkDeals.com, and they bring their own personalities, their own opinions, their own experience to the table. So even though Craig has heard me for years trash Wells Fargo, he likes them, he uses them, and so he wrote about them, and that's what it's all about. So no, I don't. I don't do business with Wells Fargo.
I remember when we switched payroll companies and we had a staff meeting and Krista called out a few people when she was like, we had to turn in our new bank statements. And she said, there are a lot of you that are here with big monster mega banks. And people were in the meeting like.
Yeah, truth is, I'm not a fan of the way the 4 giant monster mega banks do business. I mean, you got Chase, Citi, Wells, and Bank of America, that the 4 of them control more than half of banking in the United States. And I don't think that's healthy. Right now, if you look at what the 4 giant monster mega banks are paying people in savings versus going out in the marketplace, it's really a stunner how little these banks are continuing to pay, even in today's 5+% interest rate market on savings accounts and CDs. If you're with one of the 4 giant monster megas, you may still be earning only 1/100th of 1% on your savings. I don't like them.
From John in Pennsylvania. I just heard you speak about renting out a portion of your house if the zoning allows it. I live in an area zoned for single-family dwellings. The house next to me has recently been sold, and the new owner has converted it to 2 apartments and rented them out. I have reported this to the local government, and I'm waiting to see if anything happens.
Don't hold your breath. Bad idea to hold your breath for never.
Do you have any suggestions on things I can do to have this apartment building returned to a single-family dwelling?
All right, so I don't know what kind of community you live in, John, if there's any homeowners association, but the real power comes from the association, even if it's a non-mandatory association, or from neighbors, in addition to yourself, contacting your city council member or county commissioner, whatever the government structure is, town council, whatever it is where you live in Pennsylvania. Because if you just go to the bureaucracy, there's no sense of urgency over this. But if you go the political route and definitely strengthen numbers, you'll keep this from happening. Because what happens is if the neighborhood is zoned single family, single use occupant, and somebody gets away with turning something into a 2 household property, then somebody else is like, well, look, they're getting away with it down there. I think I'm going to do that here, and on like that. And so that is something that has to be nipped in the bud if the culture of your community is single-family homes only. Now, the irony is, you said, you hear me talk about how one of the solutions to housing affordability and housing availability in the country is creating a rental property in your own home, accessory dwelling unit, an apartment over a garage, basement apartment, whatever. And I'm a big fan of this. And in areas where it's tradition and accepted, if people live in a strict single-family home neighborhood, then that's what it should be. But let me tell you, John, the movement in the country is towards having these rental units inside or adjacent to somebody's home. As I said, basement, garage, or a little cottage, what's now called by the fancy term ADU, accessory dwelling unit. So much so that there's now a new lending rule that under many circumstances allows a first-time home buyer to be able to qualify for more mortgage than they would be otherwise because of the fact that the property they're buying has a rental attached to it or part of it, and that rental income that they would have helps them qualify for a mortgage. And we're going to see more of that because of how expensive housing has become and how nearly impossible it is right now for a first-time home buyer. Coming straight ahead, I want to talk about insurance companies behaving badly. I actually had an experience with this 2 years ago, and it didn't hurt me. but it could have. I'm going to tell you what you need to know following an auto accident. We had a really lucky situation that I shared a couple of years ago. Someone hit our parked car when we weren't there and left a note and said they were sorry and left their name and phone number. And I thought that was just a class act, because you think how often someone will do something wrong and when nobody's looking, they just think, hey, I got away with this, and they drove off. The funny thing is it's a Tesla, and it has Sentry mode, and it wouldn't have mattered if this person had been honest or not, because we had a perfect video of the accident plus a video of the person's license tag. We had it, but they had done the right thing, and they called their insurer and said they'd done this and blah, blah, blah. So all that was great. So I get a call within like 2 days from an adjuster with the insurance company. And the adjuster says, oh, well, we've done an estimate of the damage to your vehicle, and we'd like to send you a check for $1,150. And I'm like, well, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to take it to a body shop. And we went through this song and dance and found a Tesla-approved body shop that they also do business with. And it goes to the body shop, and then the body shop gives its estimate, which was $8,800. So here the insurer was going to give me $1,150. And a lot of times when it's a smaller accident, what do you see when you drive around? People don't repair their car. They just leave the damage, take whatever money they get from the insurer, and they feel like, hey, I just won the lottery. But you didn't, because when the time comes you want to sell off your car, you're suffering the real loss, not what the insurance company gave you. And we were going to fix the car. So know this. It is very common, and there was a story, what made me think about this was I read a story the other day about auto insurers doing this, where they lowball the other party, not their insured, but where their insured's at fault, that they lowball to the third party like me that was not their customer, and hope you'll just say, wow, great, yeah, send me the $1,150. I'm good. But what you'll find out is it might not always be as extreme as offering basically 12% of the real cost of repairing the car, but it will be way below what the real cost of repairing your car is. So that's why you don't just accept that check. Now, depending on the state, because auto insurance is regulated by the state, the insurer, if you actually do decide to get your car, truck, or SUV or whatever repaired, that payment is not a waiver of you receiving more money if the cost of repairing the car is more than their initial estimate. Some states, you take that check, it's over. And that's all you're going to get. Others, that's only an opening offer. And even if you take the check, it's not final if you get the vehicle repaired, because that's the real test. If you're not getting it repaired, then you're in a weak position getting a fair payment from the insurer. And there's something else I have to say. You see the TV ads, the billboards for the personal injury lawyers. And it's been my belief for a long time that the auto insurers have brought that on themselves with all the, you've been injured in an accident, now you can be a zillionaire. I mean, it's funny, you drive down I-95 in Florida, and it seems like every other billboard is for some personal injury lawyer, and you'll see on many of them where they're acting like you won a lottery, that you were in an accident. It'll show somebody will be smiling with a big check they're holding with a lot of zeros following whatever the first digit is. And, now I'm rich because I hired blah, blah, blah. So there is a certain thing, a mentality that, hey, I got hit, so now I'm going to be rich. And that's been influenced by all this TV advertising. But I think there's another thing, and that is following an accident with injury of some kind. A lot of insurers really play dirty pool in this area, and they don't play straight with people, and they lowball, and they say, "Oh, you don't need a lawyer. Just work with us here. Just trust us." And the industry has so acted in bad faith with people injured in accidents that it's like the industry's driven people to lawyers. I think how often I've talked to people who say, I didn't want to hire one of those people. I didn't want to hire one of those lawyers, but the insurer was playing dirty. And so we've got a lot going on here that drives up the cost of insurance for all of us. And that's just one part. Now, I just insulted a lot of professions and a lot of industries, all in just a couple of minutes here. So remember, we have clark.com/clarkstinks, where you can go post where you feel like I'm only telling part of the story or a slanted viewpoint of it about what goes on with auto insurance and claims. And now, what do you got from me, Nicole?
From Sam in Michigan. I have a situation where an adult daughter living on her own is in an immediate need of a vehicle. I am offering her to use one of my vehicles short term while she pursues a replacement. My question is in regards to insurance. Should I contact my insurance company about this? I don't want to needlessly make it complicated. I'm expecting she will get a new vehicle in about 2 weeks.
All right. So first of all, I'm not a lawyer. I'm going to point that out, Sam. As a practical matter, if this really is a matter of days or weeks, not months, then it is normal and routine in a family that a family member would lend one of their cars to another family member. And that's what you're doing here. If it became a thing where she was never getting around to buying a new vehicle, I would say you hit a month. Yes, you call your insurer and say that temporarily that your daughter is using one of your cars because hers, for whatever reason, is not available. And up to that point, just extremely temporary use, I don't see any reason for you to do anything different. Sometimes, though, with an adult child, if you've solved the problem for them temporarily, in their mind, you've solved it for them more than temporarily. And so that's your own family dynamic, and we'll see what happens with that.
Next question is from Clark in Pennsylvania.
What an original name.
What an original name.
Yeah.
Lovely name. As we are going through a transition process, I've been renting a storage rental facility for a year. I had the monthly payment set up on auto payment. The payment was charged to me on the 4th of the month. I moved out of the facility on the 16th, but the facility will not prorate and give me any refund. I have used other facilities in the past that did prorate when I moved out. Is this legal, but just poor business practice? Is there anything I can do?
Yeah, what you're describing is exactly as you posed it as a question. It is legal, and it is a bad business practice. And they learned legitimately the storage industry, and it varies from storage owner to storage owner if they prorate or not. They learned from the cable monsters, and they learn from the cell phone carriers who start charging you for service on the day you sign up for service with them, but then make you pay for the whole month when you do switch from them to someone else. And it is a despicable practice. It is dishonest. It is dirty. It is crooked. And it is rotten. And it is also legal. because the contract you sign as a customer anticipates this if they want to be dishonest and underhanded, and allows them to charge you from the day you start somewhere, but then charge you for the full month whenever you decide to leave, not prorating. And so it is something that we have to be aware of, and it is unfortunately common.
From Kathleen in Hawaii. I have been an Intuit Mint user for years to keep daily track of my expenses. I love this program. I treat myself as a business by keeping track of all money coming in and going out on a daily basis, then adding it to a monthly spreadsheet. I have been doing this for almost 7 years now since I began using Mint, so I can compare costs and evaluate expenditures. This program has helped me immensely. I pay $1.04 per month for an ad-free experience, which I think is worth it. I received this email from Mint. Is it real? And the email says, "Hi, Kathleen. We're emailing you to let you know that premium and ad-free Mint services will be discontinued in the near future. You'll still be able to enjoy access to Mint's premium features through the end of the period you are billed for, but will not have the option to renew once it has ended. Log in now to view your subscription end date. Thank you for being a valued Mint member."
It is true. Mint is discontinuing the ad-free subscription, the premium kind of thing, and you're going to have to, if you're going to remain with Mint, and you've been embedded with them, you're going to have to pick a new subscription plan with them. I'm a big fan of, with technology companies, grandfathering people in and saying that if you want to go to a new plan, you can. But I think it's such a short-sighted decision of companies. There's nothing evil about what Mint's doing here. It's not like what we were talking about with the cell phone carriers and the cable monster and the storage units with the prorate thing. But this is not a smart business practice, because somebody who's been with you and has been happy paying year after year, they may say, you know what? Maybe I don't need this anymore. Maybe I should go somewhere else. And so leaving people on the plan they're on, as long as they want to be on it, to me makes a lot more sense. But it's their company. They don't want to do it. And so it is true what you received, that they are discontinuing the ad-free and premium, and you're going to have to make a choice of a new plan or choose to use another tool for your budgeting. We have on Clark.com information about how to pick one of these budgeting tools. And I have been meaning to mention, and I just keep forgetting to. I had talked, is it 2 months now, about where T-Mobile employees who were very disturbed by something T-Mobile was getting ready to do leaked internal documents on Reddit at great risk to their careers, their jobs. And what a wonderful thing they did, because T-Mobile is under a agreement with the federal government that allowed them to buy Sprint, where people would not have any price increases at all on existing plans. So T-Mobile has been jonesing for more revenue from its customers. So they were going to raise people's rates on existing plans by migrating people without their knowledge or consent to more expensive plans. And there was such an uproar, because once this was on Reddit, it got picked up on different boards, different social media. Then it got into the general media. I blasted the CEO of T-Mobile about this, the uncarrier, that did things differently than what they used to refer to as Dumb and Dumber, AT&T and Verizon. And I called them, so I said, now the big three cell phone carriers were dumb, dumber, and dumbest. And T-Mobile had its own negative term about it. Well, they backed down. And the CEO, and a discussion with financial analysts, did not apologize and mischaracterize this because you read the documents. It's just not true. Mischaracterize this as just an experiment. Why would you experiment to cheat people? And then he went on to say how the feedback was very clear and they're not going to try this stunt again. So thank goodness. And it shows that our voices do matter more than we sometimes realize, that collective response has effect. And, a lot of times in big corporations, there's a problem of groupthink where they're all talking to each other. They lose their moral compass. They lose the focus on customers. And they think, wow, look how many additional millions we'll make every month if we cheat our customers and just migrate them. And they somehow thought internally that was like a great plan, a great idea. I call it the curse of the MBAs. I can say it because I have one. And so the thing is, it was the public reaction that hit them right in the face. It was just clear as could be. So particularly before something has been implemented, when it does leak because of courageous employees, and the public reacts, it does make a difference, and you bring about change. Don't ever think of yourself as powerless. And now it's time for today's Clarkie. Who do we have now, Nicole?
We will hear from Clarkie Tom.
All right, Tom.
Hey, Team Clark. This is a Clarkie message from Tom. I'm in the hotel business, and obviously COVID was very hard. Something I've been doing when I travel now and stay at a hotel is I'll leave a thank you note to housekeeping, just to thank them for a great clean room and working hard through these tough times. And I put it in a indiscriminate place, maybe behind a pillow or something. I think it'd be great if us Clarkies left a thank you card and maybe Clark's website for people to get to know Clark better. We just say thanks for all you do, put in like $5 and put visit clark.com. All right, take care.
Thank you very much. And I don't leave a note. When I come out of the door and I see a housekeeper in the hallway, I always go and thank the housekeeper because they have by far the toughest job in the hotel other than working in the hotel laundry, which to me is the hardest job in a hotel. But I really appreciate what people do following up after a lot of us are pretty messy and going in there and having to clean up our rooms. And I always leave a tip behind. And if I do see a housekeeper, I do speak to them. And I encourage you to remember there are people who we feel like we have to tip that we're face to face with, and then there are others we ignore. And housekeepers in a hotel are a perfect example of people who are in the hierarchy of a hotel at the low end of the totem pole and are generally not compensated well. And so doing what you said is a great idea. And except I don't know that you need to tell them about Clark.com. That's funny. I appreciate it so much. And I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. Remember what we're about. Save more, spend less, and avoid getting ripped off. Have a great rest of your day.